So I got four of us. I looked for my friend. I couldn't find him anywhere. And I tried to find him. I yelled. I walked up and down the train, nothing doing. So I got acquainted with three other boys. We started marching. The first night we wound up in a German farm. I walked over to the lady and said, look, we got just liberated. Don't be afraid, we're not gonna harm you, but we have to sleep here overnight. We're gonna sleep in the attic, okay? And we gave her a couple cigarettes. She was very happy. Then she brought us a big pot of boiled potatoes. And that was fine. The next day we wound up in a schoolyard. And the fourth day we wound up in a city called Starnberg. That was a resort city. The Americans came in, had their lunch there, and they moved on. We were assigned a house where a German SS officer was living. I tell you, we walked in that house, it was a whole delicatessen store there. Salami, wine, bread, ham, cheese, champagne. It was more stuff than you could imagine, and we ate like pigs. We gave away a lot of the champagnes to the American soldiers. We called them in because there were loads of French champagne. And clothing, closets full of clothing. Now we stayed there for another week, then they announced it, we have to go to somewhere else. And as I was walking around in the city, I saw an American soldier guarding a big building. And I put my hand in there and he said to me, go in there. And that was a shoe factory with thousands of pairs of shoes. I went so crazy with myself, I put one pair on my foot, and I took another pair hanging on my belt, and took another pair hanging here, I took another pair hanging here. I wound up with 6 pairs of shoes. As I walked on the street, I gave them away. Anybody came, here, and a pair of shoes, here, take it. And a shoe, take it. I was working like a peddler, giving away shoes, but no money, just take it, I don't care. Then we were ordered later on by the American commandant go in a camp called Feldafing. That was a Hitler Jugend camp and Hitler Youth, and it was a wonderful, wonderful camp. Very nice, very fancy, very beautiful, marble sinks and beds and everything. One day, we were sitting there and eating, and sirens blow all over. A lot of jeeps are coming in, and a lot of chaplains appear. Jewish chaplain with the crosses, Jewish chaplain with the 10 Commandments. That was, I said, my God, what a beautiful army. Jewish chaplains in army, my God, what is that? And then they somberly tell us, if you had any of the soap that was given to you by the Germans in the camp, hand it in. And some people had it. I didn't have it anymore. It was a little bar, greenish gray color. And they had their bucket. And they went from person to person to person, and they took that soap. And then a chaplain came up with an interpreter. He said, look, we hate to tell you this, but this soap contains human fat. We have to take it from you, and we're going to bury this as a human being. And that shocked me. Because many, many years after, when I take a shower, I said, oh my God, who was it? What was it? What was in that soap? You know, it was a terrible thing to face. Then they transferred me to another camp, and I found a cousin of mine. We lived with 30 very religious Orthodox women and in a home in Eschwege. Then I went to Frankfurt. And then I heard that my brother is alive. He's back in Hungary. I had very doubts to go back to Hungary because I knew my parents are not coming in. My parents never came back. But my conscience took over and I said, I'll visit my brother. So I went back to Hungary. I was transported by the American army to the Russian zone, then a train. And my brother was there. He's getting married already. And after the marriage, he had a store already open. And I knew there's not going to be a future for me because it's just not my cup of tea under living under the communist regime. So I told my brother, look, you want to come back with me, fine. If not, I'm leaving. He said, okay, let me go with my wife first, and then you come later. And we had farmers who were my father's clients who had property on both sides of the Hungarian-Austrian border. They smuggled him and his wife across to Austria. Then they smuggled me across. We met in Vienna, still the Russian zone. And then we were barricaded in the mail train behind luggages. Because once you leave the Russian zone, before that even the Russian soldiers come up on the train and they inspect the train. And I heard the Russian soldiers came on the train. We were squeezed in like this for 3 hours, sitting there, not a sound. Then once we reached the American zone, we got out of the train, showed the American soldier whatever he had identification. He said, he saluted, he said, go on your way. We had a friend with us who had relatives in France, so we decided to go to France. And so, I'm speeding up a little bit, by the way. And we lived in France for about a year. My brother got his visa in France. I worked in a garment district, cutting out ladies' underwear. I got acquainted with a very pretty Russian girl. She said to me, one day we're going to meet in the United States. Her name was Tema. We went to the movies. We had a good time. A year later, I went back to Germany. I registered myself again. They found my papers. He said, yes, once we call you, you come to Bremerhaven and you're ready to go. I stayed in Germany for 1 year. Had a very good time. German girls were very good, okay? And cigarettes, chocolates, whatever. And suddenly a notification came, report to Bremerhaven, the port city. And I did. And there was a big ship, a troop ship called General Langford. And it was a little bit rusty, so they checked the papers once we got on the ship. And we had to paint the ship coming to the United States. Nothing is free. Nothing is free. We painted the ship so nicely. We came 3 weeks to the United States. 500, I got so sick leaving the English Channel. My equilibrium went totally bananas. We had to go to New Orleans first. 500 people got out in New Orleans. Then back on the ocean again to New York City. Then the captain announced, look out on the left side on the ship. And there was a Statue of Liberty. My God, people were crying and crying, and it's just kissing the ship, every piece of the ship, and waving to the Statue of Liberty. It was, I only wish we had a movie camera. Once we arrived at the port, people started descending, and I started going off the ship. The inspector says to me, wait a minute, sign here, please. I said, what do I sign? Well, if Uncle Sam calls you to the army, you got to go to the army. Oh, sure, the army liberated me. I owe them that much, so I signed it. That's it. I was working 2 years, in a textile factory. Suddenly, a notification came, a little yellow card, report to Whitehall Street in New York, United States Army. Okay. I went in, I had to fill out a bunch of papers. Few doctors examined me, a psychiatrist, another doctor, another doctor, another doctor. And they gave us some lunch. Hot dogs, French fries, Pepsi Cola, and apple pie.